So it looks like we might have to hear more from Favre now that the Bears have supposedly tried to contact him. Favre said he would listen. The Bears said they haven't contacted him. We'll get more into that.
More on Sports Club this week.
Hmm.
Week 14 is finally here. We're looking final four games of the season. It's
I
coming
can
to
smell the
be
playoffs,
it's
man. It's
really
close.
really coming down to be a really crucial playoff hunt.
Absolutely.
And if you missed the pre or the recap show from this week, go back. They actually previewed the NFC wild card and what they're going to do in the playoffs. It's really interesting.
They
So go
had their
back and
crystal
watch.
ball. Look pretty.
We're going to start with Thursday night game, Browns at Steelers. It's a really interesting game just simply because it's a division matchup.
Hmm.
Steelers are going to take it.
Yeah.
I
Browns shouldn't
mean,
even show up. I mean, Steelers have taken 14 out of the last 15. Steelers are favored by 14 points. Um, Cleveland's lost 5 out of 6, and Pittsburgh's on a 3-game winning streak right now. Why even show up? I'm not real sure.
Pittsburgh's got a really interesting game next week, and we'll have to hit that later.
Mhm.
But they're facing San Francisco, so that'll
That
be
is
a
a
crucial
I
matchup.
am I am looking forward to that big time.
Chiefs are facing the Jets on Sunday. The Chiefs actually coming off of a big win against Chicago, if
Mhm.
you really want to call it a big win. Chicago's trying to save their playoff lives right now. With losing Cutler, it's a tough loss.
Mhm.
Losing Matt Forte is an even tougher loss, which they are out 2 to 6 weeks. It's a terrible loss for Chicago. But the Chiefs, I mean,
They got the win.
they got
They
the
got the win. It
win.
doesn't matter. They're not going to do anything with the win. They're 5-7. Doesn't really matter. It helps though. I mean, it looks
Eh,
good on your resume.
Yeah, and they're facing off against a Jets team who is in need desperately of another win to keep in the playoff hunt.
Absolutely.
They've got the Chiefs. The Jets have the Chiefs this week. Then they go to Philly, the Giants at home, and then at Miami to finish the season. And at Miami, lately, Miami seems to be
Miami,
one of the
I would
hottest
not want
teams
to
in the
play Miami.
NFL.
Miami's one of the few teams in the NFL that I would not want to play right now. They look really good. The Jets are still looking for Mark Sanchez to take over Favre's position. If you had Favre in the backfield, you wouldn't feel so scared about these next 3 games. But Favre's used playing in the cold weather. Sanchez is not. Sanchez likes that California weather.
Hmm.
I'll say this till the day I die. Favre can play in cold weather. Sanchez can't. Don't bet on Sanchez in cold weather. Just stay away from it. It's a scary bet.
I've got the Jets in the game.
Yeah,
Chiefs,
I'm gonna
Chiefs.
take the Jets too, but yeah.
Moving on to the Buccaneers versus Jaguars. If talking to Matt earlier in the week after the Buccaneers lost, he was so livid with the Buccaneers. He
Mhm.
told me right after the game, pick the Jaguars this week because the Bucks look like crap.
Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna pick the Jaguars. Blaine Gabbert looks horrible. I think Brett Favre can come in and play a little bit better football than he is. He runs away. You have a pass rush right in there. Ron Jaworski hit the nail on the head. You can't. You have to stand in there. You have to play football like a man. You can't run away scared like you're a Pop Warner football player. Stand in there, take a hit like Favre did, getting those concussions. He stood in there, fired the ball in. I'm gonna have to take the Bucks on the road on this. Just Jacksonville showed me nothing last night.
Both are coming off really tough losses. One against Jacksonville against San Diego last night on Monday Night Football. Tampa Bay against Carolina last week. Both are ranked in the bottom half of the ESPN power rankings. I'm gonna take the Jaguars at home.
I
Uh,
just the way Gabbert played last week, no way I can take him. No
so you
way.
got the Bucks.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bucks on this one.
Moving on to the Patriots facing off against the Redskins. Um, next, if
Yeah,
anybody
really.
really
Who
thinks
wants to watch
Washington
this?
has a chance, it's they're in.
Washington needs a quarterback bad. They don't have any stability there. Favre could come in and help him. Maybe I know he's on the market. New England's gonna come in and just run all over that offense. It's gonna be ugly.
Falcons are facing off against the Panthers on at Panthers, which is a
In
really
Carolina.
tough thing to do. To go, I'll say this till the day I die. Anytime you go away
Hmm.
in the NFL, it's a tough game.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Whether the Patriots going to the Redskins is a tough game or not,
Mhm.
it's still
It's
difficult.
tougher than playing at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Falcons are needing this win against
Yep.
Carolina to keep in the playoff hunt. They're currently the sixth seed in the playoffs,
Hmm.
which is the second wild card. It's tough to keep going because I mean, if they even with the sixth seed, they're facing off against New Orleans,
Yep.
which no one wants to see in New
Talent
Orleans.
talent's there for Atlanta, but last week they just couldn't connect. Matt Ryan couldn't connect with his wide receivers, and when he did, they couldn't catch it. He was throwing the ball in there. He was throwing it high, looked nervous, not a Brett Favre type throw. He couldn't deliver the ball correctly. The wide receivers, when they got the ball, couldn't hang on to the ball. I'm really looking for Carolina to pull this one out. After a win last week, maybe get a little momentum. The Falcons looked so discombobulated last weekend. It was atrocious. I mean, I know the Texans have a good defense, but a lot of that stuff was a self error. It looked like a bad coaching plan to me personally.
Cam Newton actually passed a NFL record last weekend for 13 rushing touchdowns.
Does Brett Favre not have that touchdown record?
No, it's
Really? I thought he had all of them.
no.
Huh.
Moving on, Colts are facing off against the Ravens. The Colts are continuing to go towards that 0-16 team, 0-16 record.
Well, they're trying to stay perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they don't want
might
to
as
win.
well.
That would mess it up.
Baltimore's keeping faith with
John Kincaid, you're an idiot for not putting Baltimore in the top 5
Bal-
power rankings. How did you get a job?
Baltimore is 9-3 along with New England and Pittsburgh, so they're trying to keep pace with everybody else in the
They're perfect
AFC.
at home right now.
And they're just playing good football
Absolutely.
now.
Ray Rice has rushed for over 100 yards, I believe, in the past 3 games. They rushed for 300 rushing yards the last weekend. I mean, that's disturbing for for an NFL team to rush over 300. They have a really easy schedule to go out the rest of the. I mean, they really should go undefeated the rest of the year. Indianapolis Colts bringing Orlovsky in. I mean, I'd rather have Favre 3 years removed from the game than that Orlovsky character. I looked up a stat. Orlovsky and Curtis Painter are combined 0-28 as starters in the NFL. That is very un-Favre-like football right there. That is just horrible.
Baltimore's final 3 games after the Colts: at San Diego,
Should be a
Cleveland,
Should be a win.
at Cincinnati.
That should be a cakewalk.
The Eagles facing off against the Dolphins. Who would have thought going into Week 14 of the NFL season that the Eagles and the Dolphins would have the same record and they'd be 4-8?
That's
Just let that sink in
I mean,
for a second. 4-8.
And the Eagles don't. You really could see the Eagles losing the rest of the game. They're playing Dolphins this weekend. Dolphins are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. I mean, Matt Moore is playing like a man possessed. He's playing like Favre right now, just throwing touchdowns all over the field, doing really well. They play at home against the Jets. That's probably gonna be a loss. They play away at Dallas. Dallas. Yeah. All right.
Moving on.
Removing last weekend, they're playing pretty good. I mean, you really could see the Eagles lose out. The effort's not there. The talent is, but the effort's not there.
They could have a top 10 draft pick by the next season.
Absolutely.
Miami, on the other hand, is looked good.
They're trending up. They
actually
look
beat
decent.
Oakland, who is a playoff team in the AFC. Well, kind of.
They'll be.
They're tied with Denver right now for the top seed. Or
What's Denver?
Sorry, the Tim Tebows.
Oh. I know who they are.
They're tied with
the disciples.
Tim Tebows for the AFC West, but 34-14, Miami beat Oakland last week. It was just a rough loss for Oakland. Vikings are facing off against the Lions. Lions should actually take this. The Vikings are playing terrible.
Get out of their own way.
Christian Ponder had a good game against Denver last week, but
he's no Brett Favre.
No.
I mean, Brett Favre put up a lot better numbers when he was with Minnesota than Christian Ponder could ever hope to put up. He did put up good numbers against Denver's defense last week, and Denver's defense has looked pretty good as of late. I just don't see him pulling this out. The Lions, even without Sue, just seem to get penalties just tacked on and tacked. They just seem like they can't get out of their own way. I mean, it just seems they get a little momentum and then they shoot themselves in the foot. It's just very Plaxico. It's not. That's not very.
Okay, Stevie Johnson. We're gonna move on before we get fined by the NFL. The Lions are the last 3 games for the Lions schedule outside of the Vikings: at Oakland, San Diego, and at Green Bay. Tough stretch. Saints are facing off against the Titans. Titans are needing a win desperately to keep pace to maybe make an outside shot for the AFC playoffs. New Orleans, on the other hand, is continuing to lock up the division. They're 2 games up now in the NFC South, with a game in hand against the Falcons, who are the number 2 in the division. Mm-hmm. It's not looking good. I think the Saints actually have the division almost locked up. They have, outside the Titans this current week, they have at Minnesota, Atlanta, which is a big Monday night game. It's the last Monday night game of the year, which is probably the best Monday night game that you could see out of the past five
Yeah, they've
weeks,
been snoozers.
and at home against Carolina. So I think,
They have to win out.
yeah,
I would think right now. New Orleans and they're 5-1 in the last 6 games. They're averaging 36 points per game. That is disturbing. But keep in mind, Titans are 3-1 in the last 4 games. In those, Johnson is averaging 24 carries, 157 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's the key right there, is to see how many touches he gets and how many rushing yards he gets.
Titans actually have probably a 2-2 stretch in my opinion. They're facing off against the Saints. I think it's going to be a loss. I think
Loss.
Saints are going to win.
Yep.
They're at Indy, which I
That
think
should
is a
should be
win.
a win.
They're home against Jacksonville.
That should be a win.
That should be a win. They're at Houston. That's going to be a
That should
loss
be a
in my
loss. Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. The way Houston's defense is playing.
Michael Turner, who is probably one of the best backs in the NFL, all biased aside, only gained 48 yards against Houston last
He's
week.
almost as good as Michael Tolbert.
Or
Brett Favre if he played the running back position.
He really is. Texans facing off against the Bengals. Bengals need this game badly to try to make the playoffs.
Yep.
Houston, on the other hand, almost has the division locked up.
Mm-hmm.
They just need one more big win, and I think they'll actually take care of it.
Yeah, I think they'll lock it up. TJ Yates played really well last week. I was thinking if he didn't come in and play well, they might go for Brett Favre in free agency. But he came in and played really well. That defense came in and played really well. The Bengals, to keep in mind, 3 of their 5 losses, 2 have come against Pittsburgh and 1 have come against the Ravens. And both of those teams are in the top 5 in the power rankings. So they're a good team. But that conference they're in is so hard. I mean, they have 2 games against Pittsburgh and 2 games against Baltimore, and that's anytime you got to play those teams twice in 1 year. That's tough. But yeah, the Bengals need this one to stay relevant in the playoff picture.
Houston actually, TJ Yates played an outstanding game
Terrific.
against Atlanta
Yep, very good.
last week. So
Very
I
good.
mean, plus their defense is just outstanding.
Mhm.
I thought they were going into the game. I was like,
Number
well,
one
maybe
defense all around all
yeah,
year. Yeah.
maybe Atlanta could maybe salvage something. They couldn't do
Nope.
anything. Bears at Broncos, or excuse me, Bears at Tebow's.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I
Bears
got to
at
keep
Tebow
it
and
simple
his 10 disciples.
for Bryce. Bears need this win more than the Broncos need it, in my opinion,
Absolutely.
because the Bears
Yes.
need it terribly just to keep pace. If the Bears win and Detroit, or if the Bears lose and Detroit wins, suddenly Detroit takes over that wild card spot, and Atlanta moves up to the 5 seed.
And I see the Bears legitimately losing this. I mean, they've lost their starting running back and their starting quarterback. They're in the market for a quarterback right now. No, Brett Favre's a free agent down in St. Louis right now. He's a high school quarterback coach. I would love to see him up there. It's 3 of the teams in that conference that Brett Favre's played for. I mean, to see Favre in a Bears uniform, I know the Bears people would love it just to see him throwing around touchdowns against everybody else. But I don't know. I don't know if you could beat Tebow, man.
Okay, you've passed the 15 mark. We can stop talking farm.
He just said Favre.
That's 1 for me. That's all. Jeremy's keeping count off camera, guys.
But in all seriousness, Tebow's not putting up Favre numbers, but he is putting up Favre type wins. I mean, he just keeps on winning, and I don't know how he does it, to be honest with you.
I'm going to
really
take the
don't.
Broncos in the game. I think they're better at home.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, he's got to pray to the Favre gods that he throws some touchdown passes.
49ers against the Cardinals. I'm taking the 49ers. I said it before a couple weeks ago, even though they lost to Baltimore on Thanksgiving. I'll say it again. I'm not picking against the 49ers again for the rest of the season, even though they're facing off against Pittsburgh next week.
I'm so tempted to put them as the second best team in the NFL as number 2 power rankings because no team in the history of the NFL has ever allowed 0 rushing touchdowns for 1 season. The least is 2.
5.
Is it 5?
It's 5.
Oh. What's 2?
Oh, it could be 2.
I don't remember. But either way, it's an amazing feat that they've gone this far. And Alex Smith, as much as I've doubted him all this year, is a terrific game manager. He's right now the leading candidate for the comeback player of the year, and deservedly so.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm taking San Francisco in the game.
Yeah, me too.
Bills at Chargers. It's a tough matchup for the Bills because the Chargers looked outstanding last night against Jacksonville.
Yep.
Granted, Jacksonville's got a top 5 defense, and you have to think, well, Philip Rivers threw 3 touchdowns and no
Philip
picks.
Rivers is on, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But when Philip Rivers feels like it's all up to him and he has to force it, something clicks in that head. He's like Brady Quinn. He just seems like he crumbles under pressure, and it sucks because he has just ton of talent, and you saw that last week against a decent Jacksonville defense. He can throw it around with the best of them. I'm gonna have to take the Chargers at home on this one. The Bills just have way too many injury problems to even begin to think they can sniff and beat the Chargers.
Me too. And a lot of people are talking maybe the Chargers have an outside shot of making the playoffs.
They're only 2
Their
games back.
final three games after the Bills, Baltimore. That's tough.
That's tough.
But it's at home. At Detroit,
That's another tough one.
at Oakland.
Those are 3 really tough games.
It's going to be a tough stretch. The Raiders are facing off against the Packers.
Next,
Obviously we've got the Packers. Giants at the Cowboys Sunday night. Really, really huge, crucial matchup
this is
for
the division.
It really is.
This is the division.
The Cowboys need this win to keep the division,
yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
If they don't, I mean, they've still got one more game facing off against the Giants. Against the Giants at the last game of the season. So, I mean, that's a tough game too. But, I mean, if you look at the two schedules, Giants have Washington at home, at the Jets, Dallas at home. Dallas, on the other hand, has at Tampa Bay,
That's a win.
home against Philly,
That should be a win.
at the Giants.
Coin toss.
It's going to be really interesting to see what happens down the stretch of the NFC East.
Cowboys have to have a bounce back game from that embarrassing icing your own kicker.
I'm going to take the Giants in the game. I think the Giants actually might pull it off.
I got to take the boys at home. I'm a biased fan, and I just got a feeling, man.
Rams are facing off against the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. Yeah, moving on. Seattle's going to take this game.
Monday Night Football. What's up with that? I mean, they just can't get a good matchup. What is up with this?
What happened, and this is just my opinion, if you look at the past matchups, a lot of it was playoff teams from last year or playoff contenders from last year.
Yeah,
the Rams were a 7-9 team last year, and the Seahawks won the division at 7-9.
Yeah, the only losing team to ever make the playoffs.
Let's
put them on Monday Night Football.
I'm taking the Seahawks at home.
I'm taking the refs.
That's it for our Week 14 preview. Come back next week. Hopefully the playoff picture will evolve a little bit more, so we'll be able to see.
Favre might be signed by then. Hopefully.
A lot more. But that's it for me. This has been Bryce and Billy for Week 14. Take care, guys.
Favre.